There are moments when the room is quiet, yet your heart feels loud, and you sit with thoughts you did not invite but cannot ignore. You may be listening to this while carrying questions you never planned to ask, or while holding hope that has grown tired of explaining itself. I want to speak to you as someone who has sat in that same silence, not with answers written in stone, but with a faith that learned how to breathe through uncertainty. There are seasons when love feels distant, not because it is left, but because it is forming in places we cannot see yet. Scripture reminds us that God often works beneath the surface, like roots stretching quietly through the soil, long before anything breaks through into the light. We live in a world that rushes everything, even the sacred things, and that can make waiting feel like failure. But patience in the eyes of God has never been punishment, preparation. I have learned that when the Bible speaks about love, it does not rush it forward, it steadies it. It tells us that love is patient and kind, not as a demand, but as a description of how God approaches us. If you have felt overlooked, if you have wondered whether your prayers were heard, you are not alone in that wondering. Many of the people we admire most in Scripture waited longer than they expected, and they grew deeper because of it. There is something holy about becoming someone who can receive love well, not just desire it, but steward it with wisdom and humility. Sometimes God shapes our hearts before He changes our circumstances, because a healed heart can recognize blessings that a wounded one might miss. You may be in a season of becoming right now, even if it feels like standing still. The Psalms often speak of God being close to the brokenhearted, not as a poetic idea, but as a lived reality. Closeness does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like quiet endurance, or the strength to get up again without applause. I want you to know that your worth has never been measured by who stays or leaves, or by how quickly your life unfolds. Your value was spoken before you ever had the chance to prove anything, and it has not been revised since. Jesus often met people in ordinary places, by wells, on roads, in homes, because holiness was never meant to feel unreachable. He spoke to people where they were, not where they thought they should be by now. That same gentleness still matters. There are forms of love that arrive quietly, not as a rescue, but as a recognition. And sometimes what approaches us first is not another person, but a deeper peace within ourselves. The Bible reminds us to guard our hearts, not to close them, but to protect what God is growing there. Healing is not forgetting what hurts you. It is learning that pain no longer gets the final word. Faith matures when it learns to trust without demanding control. You may have prayed for clarity, only to receive steadiness instead. That is not God withholding. That is God strengthening you for whatever comes next. When Scripture says to be still and know that God is present, it is not an escape from life. It is an invitation to rest inside it. Love that is rooted in God does not arrive to complete you. It meets you already whole, even if you are still learning to believe that. There is dignity in waiting without bitterness, and courage in choosing hope again after disappointment. The book of Ecclesiastes speaks about seasons, not to frustrate us, but to remind us that nothing is permanent, not even the hard parts. What feels delayed is not always denied. Sometimes God protects us from receiving something too early, before we know how to hold it with grace. If your heart has been asking when, I want to gently suggest asking who you are becoming instead. Because the person you are growing into will matter deeply when love does arrive in whatever form it takes. There is no shame in longing, and no weakness in hope. Jesus himself wept, not because he lacked faith, but because he loved deeply. That tells us something important. Emotions are not enemies of faith. They are places where faith learns how to speak honestly. You do not need to force joy or pretend peace. God meets sincerity far more readily than performance. There are days when the most spiritual thing you can do is rest and trust that God is still working while you breathe. If this message is reaching you during a quiet moment, I believe that quiet has meaning, not as a sign, but as space. Listen. Space to heal. Space to remember that you are not behind. The gospel never portrays God as hurried, yet his timing is always exact. That truth has carried me through seasons of confusion, when nothing made sense except the decision to keep trusting. If you feel unseen, remember that God sees differently than people do. He sees the full story, even the chapters you are still living through. And he is not disappointed by your process. There is a verse that says God completes what he begins, and that promise does not expire because you feel tired. It remains steady, even when your confidence wavers. Love shaped by God does not rush your healing, it honors it. It does not demand perfection, it invites growth. And it does not arrive to distract you from yourself. It helps you see yourself more clearly. If you have been learning how to stand again, how to trust your own voice, how to forgive without forgetting wisdom, that matters. Those lessons are not wasted time. They are part of the foundation. I speak to you not as someone above you, but as someone walking alongside you, still learning what faith looks like in real life. There were moments I thought love would fix everything, until I realized God was fixing me first. And that work was quieter, slower, but far more lasting. Scripture often shows God asking questions, not because he lacks knowledge, but because he invites reflection. Where are you right now, and what do you need most honestly? Sometimes the answer is not more striving, but more trust. If you feel encouraged here, and you find yourself returning to messages like this, you are welcome to subscribe to the Angelic Lights channel, not as an obligation, but as a shared space for reflection and faith. There is no pressure, open invitation. And if something here resonates, a kind word in the comments or sharing it with someone who needs peace can be a simple act of grace. Nothing forced, nothing owed. As we come toward the end of this reflection, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not late. You are not forgotten. And you are not unworthy of gentle, meaningful love. God's timing is not a test you are failing. It is a story still unfolding. Hold gratitude for what has shaped you, even when it was hard. Trust that what is meant to meet you will recognize the strength you gained along the way. And rest in this truth. God is faithful, even in the quiet, even in the waiting, even now. And as you sit with that truth, allow yourself to breathe without needing to resolve everything tonight. Faith was never meant to answer every question at once. It was meant to keep us steady while the answers unfold in their time. There is a tenderness God shows toward people who have been disappointed, a patience that does not rush them back into expectation before their hearts are ready to hope again. If you have learned to be cautious, that does not mean you have failed spiritually. It means you have been paying attention to what mattered. Even Jesus withdrew at times, stepping away from crowds, not because he was weak, but because solitude has a way of restoring clarity. Sometimes love approaches us not with noise, but with alignment, when our inner life finally matches the peace we have been praying for. The Bible speaks often about wisdom, and wisdom is rarely dramatic. It grows quietly through discernment, through choosing what is healthy over what is familiar. If you have been learning to say no, to let go of what drains you, to value rest without guilt, you are growing in ways that matter deeply to God. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude, and faith teaches us how to recognize that difference. Loneliness tells you that something is missing. Solitude teaches you that God is present even here. That awareness changes how we wait and how we love when love eventually finds its way to us. Scripture reminds us that God does not give as the world gives. He does not rush connection, and He does not confuse intensity with intimacy. What He offers is steady, rooted, and able to endure seasons of uncertainty. If you have ever felt like you were falling behind others, remember that comparison has never been a reliable measure of faith. Some people grow quickly in visible ways. Others grow deeply in hidden ones. God values both, but He knows exactly which one you need right now. There are prayers you prayed years ago that may be shaping your present more than you realize. Because God delayed answering, but because He answered them through growth instead of shortcuts. The heart that has learned patience can recognize sincerity when it arrives. The soul that has learned self-respect will no longer settle for what wounds it. These are not small victories. They are sacred developments. When the Bible speaks about renewing the mind, it is not about positive thinking. It is about learning to see yourself the way God already does, as someone worth caring for, as someone capable of receiving good things without fear. You are not asking for too much when you desire love that is gentle and honest. You are asking from a place that has learned discernment. And discernment is a gift, even if it came through difficulty. There will be moments when doubt tries to convince you that the quiet means nothing is happening. But faith reminds us that God often speaks in stillness, not to overwhelm us, but to steady us. The prophet Elijah did not hear God in the storm or the fire, but in a gentle whisper. That detail matters. It tells us that God's presence does not compete for attention. It waits to be noticed. If you feel drawn toward peace more than excitement these days, that is not a loss of passion. It is a sign of maturity. You are learning what sustains rather than what stimulates. And that shift prepares you for relationships that do not drain your spirit, but strengthen it. Love shaped by God respects the work He has done in you. It does not rush your healing. It does not dismiss your boundaries. It does not ask you to abandon wisdom for the sake of connection. If you have ever felt guilty for wanting stability, let that guilt rest. Scripture never portrays stability as boring. It portrays it as fruitful. Trees planted near water do not rush their growth, yet they bear fruit in season. That image is not accidental. It reminds us that nourishment matters more than speed. You are allowed to take your time becoming who you are meant to be. God is not anxious about your future. He is present with you now, and presence is His preferred way of loving. There may be parts of your story you wish you could rewrite, moments you regret, choices you would change, but grace does not erase the past, it redeems it. Nothing you have lived through is wasted in God's hands. Even the lessons that came through pain can become wisdom that protects you later. If your heart feels tender, that is not weakness. That is evidence that you still care, still hope, still believe life can be gentle again. And that tenderness is something God handles with care. He doesn't shame it. He doesn't exploit it. He shelters it until it is strong enough to trust again. As you move forward, you do not need to carry fear of being disappointed again. Fear does not guard love. Wisdom does. And wisdom grows from experience, guided by faith. If tonight you find yourself feeling calmer than before, even just a little, that matters. Peace often arrives quietly, and we recognize it only after it settles. Hold gratitude for this moment, not because everything is resolved, but because you are learning to trust without certainty. That kind of faith is not loud, but it is resilient, and it carries you farther than you think. Wherever you are listening from, know that your story is still unfolding, and God is still involved. Not rushing, not pressuring, but walking with you through every step. May you rest tonight with less weight on your heart, more patience in your spirit, and a quiet confidence that you are held. Trust. not in outcomes, but in the faithfulness of God, who has never left you and never will.